So it's an incredible reading we had. It's meant to be incredible. It's literally, I said, the linchpin. There was a Chicago Tribune journalist, investigative journalist, who sought out to disprove Christ. Because his wife got converted. He was very upset by this. He thought, what an idiot for believing in Jesus. And so he decided he was going to disprove Jesus. And so he started investigating it. And he went to someone else he knew in the office, and he said, if someone was trying to pull apart the Christian faith, where should they start? And this person said, the death, crucifixion, and resurrection of Jesus. You prove that to be wrong, all of Christianity falls down. It is the linchpin of our faith. Which is why on Easter Sunday, when we get to tell this story, when we get to tell this part of history, it's an incredible thing. As an aside, that investigative journalist ended up giving his life to Christ in face of the overwhelming evidence, and is now a pastor of a church. He even wrote a book called The Case for Christ, which records the interviews he had with people that ended up showing him that all the evidence points to the fact that he lived, died, and was resurrected. So, if you think it's not real, look into it. But it's an incredible part of the story. It's something that's literally divided our history in two. We've counted the years since this happened. It is a major event. The stone rolling away from the tomb. But the thing is, you don't immediately think, in common sense, you wouldn't immediately see a tomb rolled away and go, someone is risen. When I do a funeral, I don't look at every single and go, that person rose, that person rose. No, I assume they've taken the body somewhere. I assume they've moved it. I assume they've just dug it. I don't start thinking that people have risen. It's not common sense. And the thing is, we see this from Mary. Mary, in verse 2 of our reading, sees the stone rolled away, but doesn't assume that Jesus is risen. It doesn't say Mary saw the stone rolled away and then she believed. No, that's not common sense. That's not logical. It's not a normal conclusion. So that's not what she does. Instead, she runs to the disciples and she says, they have taken the Lord out of the tomb. That's her conclusion. Stone's rolled away, they've taken the Lord. That's a logical conclusion. That's common sense, I would argue. Because I think there's a good number of people who could have done. The Romans might have taken the body. You know? Crucifixion, the whole point of it is to put someone there to show everyone, don't do what they did. There's a tangible reminder, you don't do what they did. You do not follow them. It's a way of distilling fear. Maybe they want to take the body to carry on doing that. It's possible. Maybe the Jewish authorities did. Maybe the Sanhedrin did. They were very keen to show people that Jesus was nothing special. And you could probably do this by showing his dead body. They might have taken it. It's possible. It's a logical conclusion. I agree with Mary at this point. Fair enough. They've taken it. And we may wonder, well, why not go look in the tomb? The only reason I can think of is, one, she was so sure there mustn't have been anything in there. It must have been grave robbers, that she didn't think she needed to. But it's also worth noting in Mosaic law in Numbers chapter 19 verse 11, you are commanded, you do not go near dead bodies. Otherwise you are ritually unclean for 7 days. In other words, you can't go near anyone for 7 days. So why go in there? Why risk it? And the thing is, if you love someone so much, Mary loved Jesus so much, do you really want to risk going in there and seeing his dead body? It makes sense. I agree with her conclusion. I agree with her common sense. It's common sense. I get it. I love it. She runs away. She goes to tell the other disciples. They clearly agree this is the logical conclusion. They clearly agree. Because when they run, John's faster, he wants you to know, when they run and they get there, they're not worried about Mosaic law. They're not worried about coming into contact with a dead body. They go straight into the tomb, suggesting they're not expecting to see a dead body. They seem to agree with Mary, okay, someone's taken him. Most likely they're going into that tomb to see if there's evidence. Who took him? It makes sense. It's a logical conclusion. But then, something happens. Something happens. In verse 8 of our reading, it says, he saw and he believed. It's the first time we're told that a disciple believed that Jesus had risen again. Something about what he saw changed what was logical. Something about what he saw changed common sense. Something led him to believe Jesus was risen, and that was the logical conclusion. Something he saw in that tomb led them to realise that grave robbers was not an obvious conclusion. That was not common sense. And the thing is, we all have common sense. I hope we do, anyway. We all have common sense. We all use it. Less so these days. I'm happy to blame my generation for this. But I think we are losing common sense in the world. Has anyone seen like warnings or labels on devices and things? And they treat you like an idiot. As if you have no common sense. I quite enjoy these. I've started making lists of them as a hobby of mine. I think they're fantastic. I want to share with you some I have noticed that show me that we have no common sense these days. Or at least people believe we don't. We went to Butlins earlier in the year, January. And I went for a shower that first day. And in the shower, it literally said, floor might be slippery when wet. Who would have thought? As if we needed any more help from Butlins. Becky went to use a hairdryer. I kid you not, on the label, do not use in shower. I don't have the longest hair, but I doubt anyone has ever thought while in the shower, I know how I could speed this up. I found a common warning. Some warnings we see all over the place. I saw one that said, harmful if swallowed. It's a normal warning, that's fair enough. You see them on gel packets in a bag in case you get a mistake with some sweets you throw in there. I kind of get that. Harmful if swallowed. I saw that label on a coat hanger. Who's that for? What Guinness World Record wannabe is looking at a coat hanger and going, I can swallow that. We were out in a toy shop the other day, not long ago, and you know those scooters the kids go on? I don't know what I was trying to simulate. Little push scooter. There was a label on it saying, this product moves when used. Should bloody well hope so. If you go to many hotels, you'll find warnings everywhere. They're very keen to warn you of things in hotels. They doubt your common sense in hotels. On the iron in a hotel, it said, do not iron clothes while wearing them. People in a real rush in this world today. Wait till you hear this. We bought a pram, we bought a stroller recently, a running one. On this stroller was the warning, remove child before folding. Not enough room for your kids in the car? Fear not. Put Junior in and black pack him. He'll slide right in. Some of these warnings, they didn't treat you like an idiot, they really do. Guess, I bet you could guess, because I'm sure you've all seen it. The warning on peanut butter.
May contain nuts.
May contain nuts. Not even that, it actually says on one of them, may contain peanuts. The bit that upsets me about that is the may. If I bought peanut butter, and it's only a chance that it might have peanuts, I think I've been ripped off. Some are scary. Some warnings make you wonder who inspired them. Our microwave broke, we bought a new microwave. On it, there was the warning, do not dry pets in microwave. Who is this for? Most time, the worst one I ever found. We just moved in, got nothing when we moved into the mansion to buy everything, went to buy a toilet brush. The warning on the toilet brush, do not use for personal hygiene. Who is using a toilet brush for personal hygiene? I pray for them nightly. Who are these people? I don't see where common sense enters this. I don't see it. And I don't envision, I really struggle to imagine there is someone in the world. Like, I don't believe the situation where someone wakes up, goes for a shower and thinks, you know what, I'm going to dry my hair while I'm in the shower, pass me that hair dryer, I'll get on it. And as they step out, they slip on the floor, confused as to why it's slippery, knocking off their poor hamster and making it wet. Not to worry, bung it in the microwave. I'll dry poor Fluffy off. I'll do him. They go, they dry their hamster, but they're in a rush that morning, they might be in a rush. They might need to desperately return their scooter. They've opened the box and are very upset to see it moves. That's not good. So they need to be in a rush. And he's slowed down drying off Fluffy in the microwave. So he thinks, I know, I'll iron my clothes while wearing them. That'll speed things up. That'll do it. Then he needs to do his personal hygiene. I need a big brush to go all over me. Toilet brush. Underutilised. They do that. Poor person ends up in hospital. Bruised ribs from falling in the shower. Hamster explosion all on them. And worse yet, they're there because they didn't realise peanut butter would activate their peanut allergy. These people do not exist. Or if they do, they won't for very long. Common sense. We have common sense despite these warnings. Look out for them from now on. Genuinely, they're everywhere. They're fantastic.
Our kettle says, surface may be hot.
Yeah. Sir, who would have thought? Who would have thought that kettle water, when boiled, could be hot? What will they think of next? What an age we live in. It's remarkable. But we should be able to use common sense. Thomas Reid, a philosopher, mentioned when he kind of tried to define common sense, said it's the basic ability to perceive, understand, and judge things shared by, common to, most people, without the need for complex explaining. It's common sense, common knowledge, it's logical, it's not complex. Don't use a toilet brush for personal hygiene. It's not complex.
Somebody on 400 bed scratched his back with one.
Really?
Yeah.
He needs to read his warning labels a bit more closely.
When we were checking to see if everything was clean, he got the toilet brush and he went like that.
Bet he didn't have a gerbil on him. It's a microwave. Call the police, there's some poor child flat packed in his boot. Common sense. It's not complex. We should get it. That's what you see with the disciples. They're using common sense. You see it throughout it. Of course, guys. Why they look? I mean, the issue is we read the Bible now, having seen the conclusion, knowing what happens. But it's common sense. When you see their doubts and you think, I get it. That's common sense. You wouldn't immediately maybe believe the more supernatural explanation. So when they see the stone rolled away, yeah, grave robbers, that makes sense. When they see all these things, yeah, I get it. It's common sense. It's obvious. It's not complex. And yet, in chapter 20 of John, verses 6 to 7, they see something where their common sense tells them something different. Where common sense prevails to say, this isn't grave robbery. Jesus has risen. Something they see, common sense overrules to say, Jesus is risen. So what did they see? What did they see? Well, it says, he saw the linen cloths lying there and the face cloth which had been on Jesus' head. Not lying with the linen cloths, but folded up in a place by itself. That's it. When they see this, all of a sudden the most logical, the most common sense answer is not grave robbers. It's that he's risen. That's all it took to show them that Jesus had risen. To make them believe. It's immediately after that verse, it says, he saw and he believed. So let me explain why this is such a big thing. So, it all comes down to the Jewish burial practice of how it would happen. So, the Egyptians would embalm their dead, the Romans would cremate their dead kind of thing, but in Palestine it wasn't that way. What they would tend to is they would swaddle you, the dead body, they would swaddle it in linen cloths that had spices and all sorts in. And you would leave it from there upwards kind of bare. But you would cover the face very often, not always, but very often with a cloth. The main reason for this was respect and reverence, but it was also, apparently, you could tie it at the back to ensure the mouth was kept closed. I imagine that was also a sign out of respect as well. Would be my guess anyway. So, you've swaddled cloths around. That's not just that you've laid a blanket over. If you've ever had a baby swaddled, you're wrapping this, it's like a burrito, wrapping this thing all around. And you've tied this thing to Jesus' face, keeping the mouth shut. And yet, when they go into the tomb, they see the linen cloths laying there, and they see the face cloth folded nicely elsewhere. Does common sense tell us that grave robbers did that? It just doesn't make sense. It says that the linen cloths are placed in such a way that it looks like the body just went through them. So it's not even that the cloths laid there. They're still wrapped. There's just nothing in them. So a grave robber would have had to firstly go past the guards, dupe them somehow, roll this giant stone away, go in, see Jesus, the body they're trying to snatch, and go, let's unwrap it, but then re-wrap it somehow to make it look like it's gone through, and then we'll take the face cloth and we'll fold that over there. I imagine if you're doing a robbery, you want to get a move on. Not start rewrapping things or unwrapping the very thing that would make it easier to carry. If you had your house broken into, they wouldn't unwrap your stuff to make it harder to steal, and before they left, fold up your bedclothes, your bed linen. They wouldn't do that. It doesn't make sense. So when they see these linen cloths, when they see that it's laid in the way it is, they know this can't be grave robbery. It doesn't make sense. When they see the face cloth, why would you take that off if you're stealing a body? It doesn't make sense. It's not common sense. It's not a logical conclusion. And then you have that kind of question, why would Jesus pass through the linen cloths? To me, it tells us the difference between resuscitation and resurrection. Lazarus, to some degree, is resuscitated. He comes back in his physical form. He sits up. When he comes out of the tomb, he's still got the cloths on him. Jesus isn't just resuscitated to normal life. He is resurrected. He goes through those cloths. It tells us something very key. The face cloth then, why fold that? Why put that to the side? Why take the time? I think this was something Jesus did on purpose to show us something. This is Jesus, someone who just went through the most horrendous form of torture ever concocted by man at this point. The word excruciating literally means of the cross. We didn't have a word to describe how painful crucifixion was, so we had to make one up. He endured that, the most public and brutal form of death. Everyone he loved turning on him, being accused of things he did, people who had done things wrong going free instead of him, losing his life at a young age. He went through all of that, but he didn't raise from the dead feeling fearful. He didn't raise feeling broken. Instead, it paints the narrative of someone who was in no rush. It paints the narrative of someone who was very happy to take his time, as if there is no fear. The image of him folding that linen cloth and placing it at the side, as if to say, I'm done now. I'm done with this, and I'm ready to leave. It's my time. That's the image that comes across. And if he can go through the linen cloths, he doesn't need to roll back the stone. He doesn't need to he could just go through it. So the only explanation we have for why that stone was rolled away is because he intended you to see so that you could believe. The only reason that stone is removed is because Jesus wants you to see it so you can believe he is risen. All of it is there on purpose. Common sense leads us to believe this was no grave robbery. And we know as a historical fact that that tomb was empty. The Jewish authorities wrote comprehensively about the empty tomb of Jesus because they had a vested interest in saying that they didn't want people to believe Jesus was Christ. So we have documents from the early Jewish faith at that time writing, oh, it must have been grave robbers. They've almost accidentally corroborated historically for us that the tomb was empty. We have ancient Jewish and Roman historians who write about the empty tomb, corroborating the fact it was empty. And then we have a creed that we can date 2 to 5 years after the death of Jesus. And that creed says that he appeared first to the disciples, to the 12, and then to 500. 3 to 5 years after his death, and this creed comes out, as if to say, here's the names of people he appeared to. Go ask them. Historically, we have enough evidence to prove that those who declared he had risen went to their death, very brutal deaths, refusing to recant the fact they had seen Jesus resurrected. We have an overwhelming amount of historical evidence for this. To believe Jesus rose, it's not just idiotic, it's common sense. But then common sense leaves us for a little while. The bit that comes after the disciples. Bless her, she's already been to the tomb, then run to the disciples, and now she's going back to the tomb. The way it reads in the Bible suggests the disciples left Mary, ran ahead of her to the tomb, did their exploration, and then left before she got there. Because she arrived seemingly without anyone having told her that Jesus must have been resurrected. As if the disciples are so excited, so overjoyed, they can't stop themselves. They just run away. Last one back washes the feet. You know, they're just too excited. So off they go. And so Mary gets there. She's back at the tomb now. This is where we pick up from the story. And it says that she's weeping, but the word in Greek means far more like wailing. And that makes sense. Mary, one who was overtaken by demons that Jesus cast out, meaning no one would talk to her, no one would be near her. She's been welcomed back into society thanks to Jesus. She's gained new identity thanks to Jesus. She's gained new life thanks to Jesus. She loves him, and she feels his body's been robbed and taken away. And she wails in sadness and horror. But if we were to use common sense, where would Jesus go first? He'd go to the disciples. We can read Pentecost, we can read Acts. It's where he's going eventually. He's going to them to fill them with the Holy Spirit. Say, right, now go and spread it. Common sense would say, go there first. Set the church ablaze. Go for it. Send them out. Get going. But he doesn't. Despite the fact that women weren't seen as credible witnesses, despite the fact that women weren't seen as valued as men in many ways, Jesus goes to Mary first. Why? To me, I think he does it because of the Sermon on the Mount. In the Sermon on the Mount, in Matthew chapter 5, verse 4, it says, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." Mary is mourning, truly mourning. And Jesus goes to comfort her before anything else. The Beatitudes, they're not just a nice sermon point. They're not just a nice punchy bit to remember. The Beatitudes, the blessed bits in that sermon, they're a roadmap to know where Jesus is. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are those who persecute, because there I will be. It's a roadmap to find him. And it's not because mourning earns salvation or anything like that, but because a broken heart is an open one. That's why it's so fragile. A broken heart is open, it's exposed. It's seeking, it's tender. And Mary was comforted, not just in words, but with the experience of the risen Christ. It's why we have Good Friday before Easter Sunday. It's why we have a day of mourning before a day of celebration. Because this isn't a story we read just because it's a nice thing to do once a year. This isn't a story we read because, it happens to be Easter Sunday. This is something to be experienced. It's meant to get under our skin. It's meant to be felt. It's meant to be encountered. We mourn so that our hearts can be opened. We mourn so we can feel the reality of what Jesus went through. We mourn so we can be in a space where Jesus can comfort. Where we can let him in and feel his physical presence. That's the confirmation open to us, to feel and see, as the first disciples did, to see and believe. That's the invitation to us. Jesus is risen, and when you take the historical evidence, the personal testimonies, its effect on history, how it's shaped our morality, to believe in Jesus, it's not just a good idea, it's not just a liturgy to follow. It's not just well, that would be nice if I could believe it. It's common sense. It just is. Look up how many people have tried to disprove the Bible by reading it and then become Christians. An overwhelming majority. I could find for you atheist historians, very, very adamant atheist historians, adamant Jewish historians, adamant other religious historians, who have converged on the fact that Jesus lived, died, and people died claiming they saw him alive again. These facts are undisputed under any historian. It's not even a debate, it's common sense. That's what we celebrate at Easter. Those census results, church decline, church declining. You've got some of the atheists declaring God is dead. God is not dead, he is alive and he lives in me. Easter, we show that. Jesus is risen and he is with me. Jesus is risen, he's in me. You want to know him? You come talk to me. That's Easter. That's what we celebrate. And we take it out there because it's such a necessary message. Because there are those who are weeping, there are those who are mourning, there are those who are struggling. We don't need to go very far to turn on the news and see injustice. We don't need to go very far to see war in this world. We don't need to go very far in our own society to see people desperately struggling. The message of Easter is one that Christ is with and for those people. And it is our job to give them an experience of that. It's our job to feel it ourselves. Jesus opened that tomb. He left those cloths so that we can have an assurance that he is risen. We have that assurance. It's common sense.